Hello, today for review I have a really interesting IEM monitors, and actually they are pretty recently released, so at last I'm not among the last reviewers who are covering this model. So today we will talk about Tanchjim, or how it should be pronounced, Darling. Interesting hybrid IEM monitors with design that I subjectively like. I like this small shell that allows really deep insertion of IEM monitors. And surprisingly, Tanchjim managed to put inside of these tiny shells, you will see how small they are. They are even smaller in real life than they look on picture. So they managed to put here dynamic driver, 6mm micro dynamic driver, and two Sonion balanced armatures. Also they made a lot of simulations in order to achieve the best sound, and they tuned them really nicely. So stylish design, small shape, and pretty good sound. Kind of review is over. Price is $420. I will add links to the Hi-Fi Go shop in the description. And now let's have a closer look. So package is pretty big. Tanchjim decided to create them in a premium package, pretty stylish. They were wrapped in plastic, but unfortunately I scratched them a little bit, but you will get it in a more original form. On the back side you can see that they put a kind of diagram of internals, frequency response chart, basically nice technical V-shape, and in terms of specifications, what we've got, 6mm dynamic drivers, Sony unbalanced armatures, less than 0.5% total harmonic distortion, it's really good figure, 9.5 ohms of impedance and 110 decibels of sensitivity. So I'd like to see a bit higher impedance, but luckily they are not super sensitive, so background noise won't be a huge issue for them. And as usual, under the outer cover we'll get the main inner box. So in box we will get everything in a few different places. So earpieces themselves, I told that they will surprise you. They are really small. You will get storage case in a fabric bag. Here it is with magnets and a bit unusual in terms of design. Pretty fancy. Stock cable, and predictably here we'll get tips. Tips and different manuals and warranty cards. You can see that big part of box is occupied with different paper spacers. So two set of tips, 3 pairs each. So one of them are treble enhancing, others are actually they all are treble enhancing. So I thought that as usual we'll have one pair of balanced, second pair of vocal or something like that, but not in this case. So let me zoom in a little bit, just a bit, and you can see that in terms of design they are unusual, so nothing super fancy, but they are tiny, they are really well made, and that combination of shiny and matte metal looks pretty dope. They have long spout, and actually that this is the model that you need to consider if you need something with good passive sound isolation, because usually such earpieces can be inserted deeply, and with the proper tips you can achieve pretty decent isolation. On the spout there are two lips, so you can has two different options in terms of depth of feed, so you can feed them a bit shallower or deeper. So we can wear the tips up to the first lip, or we can push them further and get even deeper feed, providing a bit different sound signature. I'm a big fan of deep feed. My ears were penetrated by etymatics in the past, so in many cases I prefer such deep and secure feed. Of course, they are really comfortable. You can insert them deeper, or you can use shallower insertion, depends on your preferences, and of course they will fit nicely even into small ears, so no issues here. And build quality, of course, is great, but what we can expect from two metal cylinders. And the hardest part is to distinguish left and right. So left has a small dot to distinguish, and that's the main source of truth to distinguish left and right channel. Here used MMCX connectors, they are pretty clicky and holds really well, so I suppose they will serve for a long time. Cable itself is average in terms of softness, maybe a bit softer than average, but not super soft. It looks fancy, it looks durable, almost not getting hard when it's cold outside. Microphonic effect is low, and to further reduce it you can use over-the-ear wearing. That's another reason why I like such shells, because you can use them cable down, you can use them over the ear, you can insert them deeper, shallower, so total freedom of finding a perfect fit. And if you have problems with fit, most probably you will find some option with these earpieces. So cable looks fancy, pretty attractive. You can see that it's silver inside of insulation, metal splitter and chin slider, and here it goes down to the regular 3.5mm jack. You can see that here used polished metal too, so they have a common approach in design, so really fancy look, nice presentation, good wearing comfort, so really nice and exclusive model. And of course about the sound, this earphones doesn't require extended burn-in. I've burned them in for 40 hours, but slight changes in sound were only during first few hours, so no big sense in burning them in for extended time. It's much more useful to spend time finding proper tips and finding the proper wearing style. So for me, I use them with deep insertion and I wear them over the ear. I really like this sense of full vacuum that they give to my ears, and I like such wearing style, so I will describe sound for such representation. In terms of tuning, in terms of representation, Tanchjim decided to go a bit safe way. They created a nice, really technical V-shaped signature that, like, you know, it tick all boxes. They won't surprise you with something unusual, non-standard, but they perform that mandatory program in a really nice and impressive way. So let's have some player on the table and let's talk about their sound. So here it is. When I first saw their frequency response, I were afraid that they will be shouty and thin. Luckily, it's another example of a case when frequency response doesn't tell you the whole story. Also, I afraid that they will sound bass-light because accent on low frequencies is present, but it's definitely not big. So I was afraid that, you know, 6mm dynamic driver won't be sufficient enough to deliver good impact and punch. So, you know, that assumption was wrong. So never try to predict the sound without trying it, because 6mm dynamic driver delivers here really nice and impressive low frequencies with really good depth, with really good sense of weight, and with good punch or kick or whatever it is. And it also really balanced in terms of quantity, at least to my taste, because it's just close to the perfect amount of low frequencies, because when it's necessary, bass is present and it sounds with a good rumble, with a good roar, with a good weight and body and impact, but at the same time it's almost not bleeding onto mids, it's not shadowing mid frequencies, and sounds really balanced. It's not a bass head model, but it can deliver a nice and good punch. Probably the secret here is a deep insertion, because you know, when even small driver is fitted deeply into your ear channel, so it's closer to your eardrum and it will deliver enough of resonance. Maybe it's not a matter of fit, because even with shallower fit, bass performance is still nice. Low frequencies are really good in terms of resolution, with nice texturing. Of course, it can't be compared with top-of-the-line models, but it definitely performs really good for this middle segment, delivering nice resolution and good amount of low-frequency overtones. So with electronic music, with synthesized low frequencies, they sounding nice, at least to my taste, and with real instruments, they also delivers good sense of presence and nice body. So I prepared two examples. First one is Massive Attack, Man Next Door. It's exactly the example of nice synthesized or sampled low frequencies. They are deep, they are interesting, they are unusual, and actually this album is remastered really nicely, and these earphones sounds great because they have a good punch, and at the same time they have that accent on the upper mids and lower treble to deliver the clean and crisp contrast to these low frequencies. And second example, one of my recent rediscoveries. You know, for many years I didn't listen to Michael Jackson, and now I'm feeling this gap in my musical education, and Billie Jean sounds really nice and impressive with these earpieces, especially when bass line starts. So it's sounding really lively, really engaging, and of course they render vocal really nicely. And mids are typical balanced armaturish. They are really resolving, they are a bit focused on the micro contrast, and that's the model that tries to deliver even small nuances and details. So if you're looking for something with good resolution, it's an interesting option, and it could be a good model. Like, you know, I have seen that they are comparable to Etymotics, and it's actually true, but it's kind of Etymotics that are supported by nice dynamic drivers on the lows. And of course that means they require a really good recorded material to sound properly, because they won't add macrodynamics, they won't add weight, they won't add additional body or emotions. So all that stuff should be present in records, and with poor records they will show the pores of that records, they will show that what are they lacking. So they're not trying to smooth everything or to highlight. In exchange with properly recorded tracks, they will deliver a great amount of details, great sense of realism, and other stuff. Also, they are really good in staging, and in terms of stage size, they are getting really close to the top of the line flagship models, and actually it's really surprising, you know. On some subconscious level, I didn't expect that such small earpieces can deliver such an impressive and big stage, but luckily they managed to do that, and in terms of three-dimensional positioning and other stuff, they are pretty nice. So first example of mid frequencies, you know, it's kind of signature mark or quality control mark. It's Miles Davis, kind of blue. I could select every single track, but all blues is also a good test of realism, good test of technical capabilities of earphones, because percussions here and of course trumpets require good singular, require good resolution and great technical performance, and they deliver this track with great sense of realism and presence. And second example is well known in the ex-Soviet territories and a bit less known worldwide, but great jazz singer from Georgia. That is a that is a country, not a state in the United States. So Georgian singer Nino Katamadze, great female vocal with good accompaniment. Her band inside is really nice. So it's unusual female vocal in terms of timbre, and of course she masterfully conquers the complex jazz pieces, and that's a great example. And you can imagine that such tracks also requires good technical performance, and these earpieces deliver that. And treble is accented, and if you treble sensitive, you need to listen them before buying. At my scale, they are coming closer to the limit, but not crossing it. So for me, it's acceptable level of treble peak, and it's not crossing my limit. So sorry, I'm walking in circles. So, but they have really good performance. They are really technical. They are clean, crisp. They are a bit lightweight, typically for the balanced armatures, but they have above average extension. They have nice layering, not superb but nice, and that gives a good overtone saturation. And treble delivered really nicely with all that small nuances, with all that slight decays that is typical for the high-end earphones. So nice performance here too. And first example for the treble, it's Search for Peace. I really like this compilation, Blue Note Reimagined, and it's Ishmael Ensemble, good example of modern jazz with nice percussions at the beginning and all that small brushes that used here. They settle the high mark for the treble performance, but these earphones deliver that, and of course it's recorded nicely because it's Blue Note. And another example, not as good recorded, but still really nice, and it's Soul soundtrack, track Just Us. Nice instrumental introduction that requires also good treble performance that this model gives. In terms of pairing, they require some nice source, not in terms of power. They don't require tons of power, and luckily they are not super sensitive, so they don't require super black background, but of course it will be a plus for them. But they require some source that will control them properly, and I'd say that minimal level for them is FIO M11 Pro or Shanling M6 Pro. So that level. Of course, with higher dubs they are also sounds nicely. For example, Ibasso DX220 sounds great if you like natural and monitoring performance focused on the micro contrast. And speaking about the compressions, just a few models to recall. For example, I don't know, AudioSense, for example, AQ7, their flagship hybrid model is a bit less accented on the low frequencies and a bit less accented on treble, so closer to linear representation, a bit fuller on mids, but this one delivers a bit better treble and more punch on low frequencies. Also, what we've got, Dunu DK3001 Pro, sounding also more monitoring and more focused on the details in the low frequencies with less weight and a bit more natural treble, but a bit less resolving on the mids than this model. FIOS FA9 has a bit more weight on mids with a slightly smaller resolution and a more typical for balanced armature low frequencies, more focused on the micro contrast with a bit less weight in the low frequencies. In the treble area they are pretty close in terms of performance. There are a lot of other models probably that could be mentioned here, but I can't recall them all instantly, so let's summarize this part because review is already pretty long. But Tanchjim created interesting model both in terms of design, in terms of sound, so price is a bit on the higher side, but at least for me they totally justify this price, especially if you like such shell construction, such fit. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and of course have a nice day.